Hello Multiverse, welcome to Omniverse Gamers. My name is Damian Bizzaio. This video is going to talk about foreshadowing. So foreshadowing is basically some kind of a clue or an indicator or a warning about something that's going to happen in the future. It's a literary technique that allows authors to kind of seed future plot lines or make something. You kind of put an idea in someone's mind so that when you spring it on them later, it's a little more believable because you already had kind of mentioned it before. It's a very good technique that helps create drama and mystery and just helps make your world feel more real and connected. It makes everything kind of flow together in a more organic way if you can use foreshadowing correctly. Now, a lot of people ask me about it. Why I do it all the time. People like, how do you do that so easily? And I don't really have a set technique. I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm just going to show you how I do it. And there's ways you can do it on purpose, and there's ways you do it kind of on accident. And there's just if you take good notes, you can just kind of you get better and better at it, and it just kind of works itself out in a lot of ways. So obviously the easiest way to do foreshadowing is when if you're a world builder and you kind of know what's coming up next. If you know say your players are going into a forest, at the other side of this forest there's say a dragon or a basilisk or something that's there that they're gonna have to fight at the end. So you can see little things along the way. Say it's a dragon. There's a dragon at the end of this forest up against the mountain they're going to. So you can see things like trees that are trampled in a big area, or like some trees that were singed, maybe some leaves were singed or something. Just little clues that tie you in that when they see that dragon, like, oh crap, all those burning, all those things that we saw were for dragons. Like one time my players were trying to find some knolls, and they were going down this track where these knolls have there were these weird poles set up with these wires across them. And it was like a tripwire, but it was 20, 30 feet up in the sky. It was about 20 feet high, and they're like, well, who is this supposed to trip? They're like, is it it's a giant? Are they trying to what are these? They didn't know what these devices were. They could knock them down and they would fall forward, and they were like, and this little smoke would come out, and they're like, oh, what was that? Some kind of trap that we sprung, but they had no idea what it was. It was this big thing. They saw a couple more. And then the whole valley kind of turned in, so they were just coming down this tunnel, and they got to a point where there was a wall, and when they crossed it, this big blades came and shut, and then they realized eventually later that these gnolls had set up this trap for the dragon. They wanted to lead this dragon along these tripwires, and when it got to a certain spot, they were going to cut off its neck. Now, I foreshadowed that by the trap. The players didn't really understand until they got to the end, because they knew there was a dragon somewhere. They had kind of they had dealt with a dragon before, and they had some prints of one, but they didn't have anything else to that. They just knew that there was a dragon in the area, and there was these weird traps that were trying to catch something big. I foreshadowed that. Just like if you see in my Mega Octopus video, they when they first came to fight the orcs, I had the orcs fighting this octopus with fire. They had all this fire stuff ready to fight the octopus. And then they fought the orcs, and at some point the octopus came out and surprised them and yanked the leader away, and it was a whole big, oh my god, there's an octopus in there. So there's something in there with a tentacle, and they knew that, but they also knew that the orcs knew that it was there, and the orcs had fire weapons all ready to go to fight it. So when they came back next time, they're like, well, maybe we should use fire too. Maybe the orcs were onto something there. I foreshadowed that. By the first encounter, they fought the orc who were fighting another thing already. It was like I kind of tied that together. So those are examples of things that I knew were going to come up that I gave foreshadowing for. I just kind of, and sometimes it's just subtle clues. Sometimes it's just subtle clues. Like, they're going to go to this next kingdom. Maybe the next kingdom is full of lizard men. So you just kind of make subtle hints about people. Oh, we don't go to the reptile land, or we don't go to this. We don't go where the hissers are, or make some kind of little clues about where they're going to go. Then when they get there and the lizard man, they're like, oh, look at those people we're talking about. Okay. And it's kind of a way to like seed things that you know is going to happen next. If you know they're going to have to fight a troll, kind of foreshadow that. Be like, oh, well, or if like say they're going to go fight something really super dangerous, like they're going to go into this cavern where they have to go fight something super dangerous. There's a lot of bones outside of dead people, like armor and rusty bones, just a lot of dead people that well, a lot of people came here and died. So that's basic foreshadowing, because like, oh, what's in there is bad because it killed all these people. Maybe we could be one of them if we're not careful. There's things like that will kind of foreshadow the. One time I had them, they came to the desert, and there was this like line of bones, or there was like an idol in the center glowing, like a hand thing, and there was a circle of bones, and they were like, that's weird. Just the way the bones were arranged. There was the little bones were way out, and the higher, bigger bones were in. There was a circle of big bones inside, and a circle of smaller bones on the outside, and they were like, well, what is that? When they got closer, this vortex picked up and started smashing people against the wall, against these pillars, and if they have to roll strength checks to get out of this vortex, and then once you're in the vortex, you're kind of stuck in the vortex, but they were helping each other by grabbing each other and pulling each other out. But then they realized if they wouldn't have done that, this guy would have just been smashed and smashed and smashed like a churning, and he would have ended up in that ring. His bones would have ended up in that ring. And that was like, whoa. And they saw that ring way before they went over there. There's, oh, where's that ring of bones? I don't know if we should go over there. And then a couple seconds later, like, oh, let's go see what that ring of bones is. And then they found out. It's something I foreshadowed. They knew it was dangerous, obviously, because they're dead bones in a circle. And once they saw that vortex spinning, they did the math. Like, oh, the smaller bones get thrown farther, the bigger bones get thrown into the second ring. And it brought that home because they had seen it earlier. And then when I did it to them, it all came together organically. Like, oh, this. So it made my world real. It made my world, like, everything leads to something else. And that's where foreshadowing is a really good thing to use. And there's other ways to do foreshadowing that it's basically improv. Like, sometimes you just drop little hints. You just keep a note of everything you tell someone. Say they're in town talking to an NPC about something, and he'll be like, oh yeah, you go to the left there and go to there's a dwarf on the other end that sells magic items. But don't say anything about his wife. Just something minor. I would just say it like that. Like, what do you mean? What about his wife? And then when they get there to the shop, he's not there. His wife's there, and she's got this boil on her face, or she's like cooking, and she's like, "Where's my husband? Have you seen my husband?" And blah blah blah. He's not supposed to be selling my stuff, or you can just see little stuff like that. And they're like, "Whoa, this woman! Like, oh my God, now the guy told us his wife was crazy. Now we got to be careful." Just anything like that. Just drop in hints about, like, oh, it's hot it's hot in the South, or it's anything you say. Try to remember it and use it later. It doesn't always have to be something you planned. Like one time they got to a door and they looked in the room, and the room was just old, ancient. There was all like ruins and all kinds of stuff in there and dusty stuff, but there was a rug on the floor that was perfectly clean. It just everything else in the room was dirty and disgusting. And I just said this rug is clean. I didn't really know why. I was just like, it's a magical rug. It's clean. I thought I was going to make it like a magic carpet. They were going to be able to get it and find clues, activate it. But then they left, and they came back to this later. A couple sessions later, they came back to this place, and they saw that they remembered that clean rug was there. What's that rug about? So they go in, and the rug just like turns into a cloth golem. Now they're fighting a cloth golem. That clean rug was a thing that they're like, well, what is that? I didn't even know. I just said, there's a clean rug, and something I just added a detail just for, I don't know, just like describing. I was like, I'd add that, whatever. And then when they came back, I was like, well, maybe I'll make that an enemy now, and that rug's gonna attack them. So they walked in, and the rug just kind of engulfed one of the people, and they're just like, holy crap. And just, that's a simple way to foreshadow. Always just kind of drop little things. Just say any minor detail you give, just kind of keep giving details. Just keep spitting details out. They don't have to be important. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. You just kind of keep adding things. Don't be afraid to say something minor and note it down for later. Anything like that. It's raining in the South. Okay. And then when they try to go south, now you're in monsoon season in the South. I told you that earlier. It's been raining there for 5 days and hasn't let up. Now you chose to come here. Now it's like a marsh. Anything like that. Any simple thing, any foreshadowing you can do for the future, it's great. It's used in movies all the time. Now there are some advantages to it, and there are also some disadvantages to foreshadowing. There can be problems. So one of the advantages, obviously, it makes your players feel like a living world. Something that you seeded a month ago is now happening, or something that you seeded last year. Now they're back here, and it's happening. It made it relevant, or you can give clues. It's a good advantage to use it to give clues to things that are going to happen. Like the townspeople are like, oh, we don't go to the cavern because the darkness comes when we go there, and they're like, what the hell is that? And they get there, there's maybe some unholy ground, some ghost or something casts a cloud that makes darkness. Or something. You can always add little weather things, or like a certain bird flies by, and all the townspeople are like, oh, that bird. When we see that bird, we know trouble's coming. Like, well, what does that mean? You just kind of always any little detail you can do, add it later. If you know what's going to happen, you can see little tiny things to kind of give your players a foreshadowing of that. Like one guy could be like, if you're ever lost, follow the sun to the south. And like, whatever, dude. And then they're lost in a maze suddenly. And they're like, oh, that guy told us if we follow the sun to the south, maybe they'll pick up. Maybe they'll remember that guy said that. Maybe they won't. Maybe they're just stuck. And then that foreshadowing didn't work. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes they don't pick up on the clues. Which leads me into some of the disadvantages. Sometimes I do this a lot. I foreshadow a lot. Sometimes my players, they expect it. So sometimes I say something that doesn't mean anything, and they're like, "Oh, wait, what does he mean by that? What that?" So they you kind of sometimes foreshadow yourself into a corner, because sometimes you foreshadow things, or you do things ahead of time, and then you don't know what to do with them. Like, well, I foreshadowed this, and now I want my players. They're supposed to go east to fight these orcs over here, but I foreshadowed something earlier about something that happened in the west, and when they get there, they're like, "Oh, maybe that's that thing you talked about. We're gonna go over here now," and they totally get derailed by some minor thing that you said because they're used to you seeding it. So there is a way. You do have to be careful, because sometimes you can lead yourself to places that you weren't ready for. Which, if you watch my prep video, you're always ready. But just, there are things you can write yourself into a corner with foreshadowing, because you foreshadow too much. And if you do it too much, obviously, they're going to be like, it's not foreshadowing anymore. You're just telling them what to do. You gotta make it subtle. It's gotta be very subtle. That way, it's more meaningful when you actually do it and when you actually reveal it. And there's also another tool that's used in literary all the time. It's called a red herring. It's false foreshadowing. So you can foreshadow something on purpose that's wrong, and they're gonna follow it because they're used to you foreshadowing, and they're like, oh, and then that was something that you had said that it was not true at all. Like, like say you keep meeting these tribe members and they're telling you how these other tribe members are evil. All they do is murder. They're murderers or killers. We don't, they murdered my son and they did this and that, and you're like, I'm foreshadowing that this other tribe is evil, and they're gonna do bad. And then when you go and meet that tribe, maybe they weren't evil. Maybe the tribe you were talking to was tricking you, or they had their perception is not the same as this tribe. Maybe totally benevolent. They just happen to get in some circumstances. But you foreshadow them as evil, so they're going to come in and start killing them, maybe kill their children or something, and then they're just like, well, you're murdering our innocent people, we didn't do anything wrong. And you're like, the player's like, oh crap, like maybe we had it wrong. So there are ways to trick them with foreshadowing, which are really cool. I'll put some links below to some websites that have like ideas on literary techniques and how it actually is done in literature. And if you read them, they can help you out a lot in ways, examples, and ways to actually add foreshadowing to your own game. So as you can see, it's a very useful tool, and you should always try to add it. Every little detail you add, try to remember it. Try to make a note of it. Notes are very important. I happen to have a good memory, so I don't need as many notes. But even my memory sometimes fails when you get DMing and you're doing 30 things that, crap, I'm supposed to do that. But you have a big note saying, at some point say, the rising sun brings the dawn, or the rising sun brings the stallion. Like, what does that mean? Some guy just said it, or written on a wall like a graffiti or something, maybe like a cult. It means a cult is going to come do something at dawn or something. Always find a way to seed something, even if it doesn't go anywhere. Just always try to, every little detail you add, keep track of it, remember it, use it again later. If it comes up again, use it. If the players mention something, maybe sometimes the players foreshadow something, like, this could be this and this, and you're like, well, I don't know, it could be that, and then they have something to do with this, and they're like, when they get to that situation, they're like, that was that thing. Oh crap, yeah. So I hope that helped you see how I use foreshadowing. It's not a science. It's more of an art. You just got to kind of work at it and just kind of add little things. The less detail the better. Be very subtle. Use symbolism. Use anything that you can do, or anything that you already did that can lead into something else. If they were in this area one time, you gave a bunch of descriptions. They're going to come back here. Maybe there's things they didn't delve with. Maybe there's something you would describe like this mud pit that they didn't go into. Now they have to. Maybe there's something in that mud pit they have to go back and do, because they remember the mud pit. They remember avoiding it. Now it's like, that monster we were looking for that we never found, his treasure is underneath that mud pit, and he's got this thing, the idol now, blah blah blah, that you need to solve another mystery. And they're like, yeah, that mud pit. I remember that mud pit. Let's go back. Let's go see what's in there. Let's be careful though, because that was dangerous. And so it's just little things. Always connect something to something else, and your foreshadowing will kind of happen on its own. Everyone thinks I do it well, and I guess I do, but I'm always thinking about the next thing, or always adding things and remembering them to pull them back. Sometimes you foreshadow into the future. Sometimes you pull from the past that wasn't even a foreshadowing, it's an actual description, and now that can serve as foreshadowing because it's relevant to what you're doing now. Like, remember that thing we did before? That's now you're doing this. And we did that before. This happened. I'm like, yes, exactly. And I'd never even actually planned it. It happened to work together, so I use it. Always use what you have. Anything you always do, keep track. You can always use it again. So I hope that helps you guys kind of understand foreshadowing a little bit. I should probably make some more videos, some more specific foreshadowing that I use to help you see the techniques and examples. This is more of an overview of the technique. Definitely add as much foreshadowing as you can. It'll make your game really fun. It helps your players. It really gives your players a feeling of connection, and they can think ahead. They start thinking ahead. What does this mean? What does everything mean? It really broadens your game and the mindset of your characters and your players. So I hope that was a helpful video. We are Omniverse Gamers. I hope to see you soon, and keep on gaming.